5 years. That's how long it's been since the first release of the PvZ3 beta. Since then, it's been hands down the most controversial installment of the franchise to date. At its core, PvZ is a pretty damn simple game. Plant sun, get sun, plant, kill zombies. But there's many interesting features, mechanics, and puzzles that keep what is a pretty repetitive game nice and fresh. PvZ2, while having some questionable monetary decisions, did a great job expanding on the first game. Making a sequel is pretty hard, ask Valve.
You can have this when you pry it from.
But I think PopCap might be losing the vision a little with PvZ3, removing and changing many core features and drastically changing the entire game's aesthetic twice, while at the same time taking unwanted features from other games all for the sake of innovation is unnecessary and a good way to alienate your players. Which is why over the course of its lifetime it had 3 separate betas with 2 entirely different versions of the game. Why has PvZ3 been in soft launch hell for the last 5 years? And is there any hope of a final launch? Are we cooked? Well, let's talk about it. I remember seeing the trailer for the first release of PvZ3 4 years ago and thinking, what the actual hell is this shit? I wanted and still want nothing to do with this game, so I never touched it. But partly because I couldn't. It was soft launched in the goddamn Philippines apparently. But the jump from 2 to 3 was incredibly jarring in more ways than one. The first 2 games at least felt coherent in design and gameplay, but one look at the old 3 and you might confuse it for one of those rip-off PvZ games. Don't get me wrong, it's not the worst art style, but it's one of the many drastic changes PopCap decided to make that instantly turned off a lot of people. Also, it reminds me of Fanboy and Chum Chum, and I despise that dog shit show. The biggest problem with PvZ3 is that it was the grindy pay-to-win mess of a mobile game people thought PvZ2 was.
Saying I can pay 10 gems to get 38? Yeah, I'll do that.
It really seemed like they wanted to lean into a more hyper-casual approach, which is still an issue even in the more recent iterations. The most noticeable reason being the locked portrait mode, because they really wanted this to be one of those voodoo games you mindlessly boot up and play for hours until they hit you with their artificial paywall. Not to mention the general faster paced gameplay, due to the criminal decision to remove sunflowers in place of this Clash Royale looking ass resource bar. They also seemed to double down on their garbage leveling system from 2, since it wasn't plausible even for PopCap to force balance changes for zombies in favor of leveling plants, because the main campaign was already done at that point. So they left that for their arena mode and the other game mode no one played. But in 3, that shit is mandatory for progression. Zombies level as well now, so you better get to specific places to get seeds for specific plants. Better yet, open some RNG pinatas and test your luck. But oh wait, you have limited energy because this is a mobile game. Let's go! They also brought over arena and clan systems where you can beg for plants. Did they really want to turn PvZ into Clash Royale for tree huggers? The Devour Tower was the main mode of progression throughout the game. Each floor of the tower had multiple stages, and beating them gave you rewards like new plants and area unlocks. The story follows Crazed Topher, Blazing Crazy Dave, and a bunch of talking plants chasing down this tower through these various areas. Why can these plants talk? Well, who am I kidding? I don't care. On the 3rd floor, they force you to lose to a balloon zombie because flying zombies are only specifically targeted by pulp plants apparently, and of course so they can show off their super cool and consumer friendly store with a battle pass and everything, because of course there is. Between stages in a level, you get a bit of downtime, allowing you to move and remove plants and give them tacos to activate their taco ability that powers them up and lasts for the rest of the level. This is basically just longer term plant food effects, and some plants like Repeater, Winterpole, and Spike Rock are only available through upgrading their respective plants. Damn, I like the idea, but we still have plant food, what's the point? PvZ3 is clearly designed to be super fast paced, and pausing the game each flag to use these taco abilities kinda just ruins the flow, you know? The fact that taco abilities and plant foods have to be upgraded per plant using separate currencies is also just shameless. The Devour Tower suffers the problem of being insanely repetitive. There's no special objectives like PvZ2's Endangered Plants, Last Stands, Conveyor Belts, Mold Colonies. Fun fact, these are called Brain Busters, I learned that just now. But there aren't even any mini-games either like in PvZ1, which at least had one on the 5th level of each area. I'm pretty sure there's not even any world hazards like gravestones or water tiles, or frozen winds. maybe that's for the better. I'll give old PvZ3 some credit that they had a wide array of interesting areas and special zombies. I enjoy the neighborhood setting, which isn't as grand as literal time travel, but is a nice change of pace they've kept interesting. Some zombies are just reskins of zombies from previous versions. They modernized newspaper zombie, ain't that crazy? And there's a wider range of bosses you can fight, which is pretty cool. But the gameplay itself is inherently mindless. They were definitely just straying away from PvZ being a strategy tower defense game, while also stealing features from other games for no damn reason. You just grind super OP plants, throw them down without a care of resource management because Sunflower decided to sit it out, and you just blast zombies. No thinking required. I respect old PvZ for trying something new, but they were just shameless as hell in their methods. I mean, this was a textbook modern mobile game through and through, which is why it ate shit a year later. September 7th, 2021 is when PvZ3 was soft launched again, with a new coat of paint opting for a goofier art style, and otherwise remaking the entire game from scratch in response to the negative reception of the first attempt. However, it feels like PopCap doubled down on a lot of the issues of the first game. I won't lie, I really like the art style in this game. It's probably the cartooniest one yet, but personally I think it's clean. But compared to the first and second games, 3's animations and effects don't have enough weight behind them. A Bong Choy uppercutting a zombie just doesn't hit like it did in 2. There's no zombie head entering the stratosphere. When a walnut is getting his nuts eaten, you don't see the same agony he's enduring like in the first games. Hell, when a zombie gets electrocuted or freaking explodes, there's no unique animation for that. I mean, come on, that's just unsatisfying. But I guess we'll get on to things that matter, and you'll see the gameplay itself is also a huge step down from previous titles. They went back to the traditional formula for levels. There's no giant tower threatening the neighborhood, but the entirety of the first beta might as well have been a 50 level tutorial, with levels so short and simple it's almost comical. Actually, it is comical, but not in a good way. And fine, it's one thing to want to showcase how plants or mechanics work to new players, but what new players are going to be playing this beta? If you really wanted feedback, wouldn't you instead handcraft some levels that require a bit more brain movement? Are we really dedicating a whole level to introducing imps? Is he really that guy? 2 whole levels just to explain roller imps move slower uphill and faster downhill? I mean, no shit, he's on a wheel. The world gimmicks themselves are also very unimpressive for how much they love to explain them. The swamp uses water tiles that occasionally shift down the current, and the volcano has elevated tiles and lava tiles you can't plant on. It's that simple. Their hardest levels are the ones that last more than 30 seconds and make at least decent use out of these mechanics. Basically, the average PvZ 1 and 2 level. And every level used pre-picked plants. Every level. These levels were brain dead enough, and they couldn't even give you the agency to pick the plants you want to use. Not that there's a huge selection of plants to begin with, but being stuck with slow ass bamboo shoots or silver swords that do negative damage kinda sucks. Not to mention the new zombies introduced in the first beta were also pretty damn boring. Sunflowers are plantable again, which is good, but somehow the pacing is even worse than before. Suns now drop in single units. Why? One sun here is basically 25 in other games, so I guess Sunflower costs 25 now? Meanwhile, pea shooter is 75 and cabbage pole is 100 for some reason. Lily pad is free, bruh. One of the most terrifying parts of water levels is managing not only attack plants, but the lily pads required to support them. If you can throw down a lily pad without giving a damn, what's the point? They did seem to slightly change the values in the second beta, but I still can't understand why these aren't just 25 or 50 sun metas. It just doesn't make sense. Just like the fact you weren't able to choose what plants you wanted to use until a few months before its last shutdown. Let's not even mention the fact that instants like Cherry Bomb and Jalapeno were all turned into cheap power-ups instead. Why? What's the point? They already had pretty hefty costs and cooldowns, making them a tool you turn to if you know you're getting cooked. Now they really want you to use these guys as paid power-ups, and no one in their right mind is spending money on this game. And Grapes of Wrath exists, I guess. He basically clears the whole line, but you can't control when he goes off. And most of the time it's at the end of the level when it doesn't even matter. So yeah, I don't know about this guy.
Grapes of Wrath, we don't even need you!
Progression in this version was the worst it's ever been, since to unlock the next scene you have to play levels and get tickets, but these tickets serve no other purpose other than just unlocking the next cutscene, so what's the point, you know? And also they kept the live system. They just really enjoy bringing things over that no one ever liked, I guess. The first beta ended in October 2022. After a full year of silence, they came back with a trailer this time and completely rebranded again. But PvZ3 is back again, and this time they'll totally listen to their community, right? If old PvZ3 was trying to be a Clash Royale for tree huggers, this newer PvZ3 is trying to be a Gardenscapes for tree fuck. But seriously though, why would you want to be the same type of game as Lily's Garden? It's pretty clear PopCap has no clue what they want this game to be, which makes no sense. Literally just do what you've always been doing. We don't need a level showing you Bang Choi is able to look behind him. Not even PvZ2 did this much over explaining. Instead of a 50 level beta, they've been adding levels each update, to the point that by the end of the game's second lifespan, there were around 470 levels. That's a serious case of quantity over quality if I've ever seen one. I guess they're trying to be another Candy Crush too. They've added some new areas, plants and zombies, and the game still remains aggressively okay. Even when they brought back Choose Your Seeds, you still couldn't see what zombies were in the level beforehand. And honestly, I'm not even sure these levels were designed for plant choice to matter in the first place. The game becomes incredibly easy. There's still nothing interesting about the levels. No brain busters, no interesting world mechanics. The minigames are incredibly brain dead. The new zombies are cool, but still not as unique as even old PvZ3. Instants are still just power-ups they really want you to use. PopCap is pushing the Gardenscapes content a little too hard, and all in all, it seems like this time they're playing it a little too safe. Too stubborn to make changes people want, but still change things that never needed to be changed because of their vision. So is PvZ3 truly cooked? Well, not really actually. I think the latest beta, while lacking in meaningful content, is probably the best state the game has ever been in. They honestly need to ditch all the Gardenscapes bullshit and stick to their roots. PvZ2, at least pre-leveling system, had a great blend of quality and quantity. Most of the levels were pretty well thought out while also requiring unique strategies, assuming you didn't just drop all your money on premium plans. PvZ3 should just stick to the world map and level formula of the first games, while coming up with better ideas to support the gameplay instead of adding a bunch of currencies and other random content we don't need. As for the latest news, earlier in January, a feedback poll was dropped about another potential redesign with 3 concept arts. One pretty similar to the first beta's art style, the current art style, and a really cool comic style, which I would love to see that style in action. It would be great if they continued making polls on other aspects of the game, since with enough feedback, I think PvZ3 will finally be able to live up to its potential. Change for the sake of change is a pretty dangerous design philosophy, and a huge factor of running a perfectly fine game into the ground. PvZ3 was never amazing to begin with, but there's a lot of ways you can expand further on the gameplay of PvZ2 while keeping the spirit of the PvZ franchise. I really love the more grounded setting of saving your neighborhood, visiting different areas of your town and killing some zombies, but this gameplay is just not up to par with previous games. PvZ3 is trying way too hard to take inspiration from other genres of games, while PvZ itself had already innovated in its own tower defense genre. I really do respect that PopCap is trying to make this work, but I think they need to reevaluate their vision a little. I'm really rooting for PvZ3 since this franchise has a super loyal community despite being treated like absolute garbage for years now. PvZ3 still has potential, but it needs a real vision, not just endless reworks. PopCap, please man, just listen to your damn community. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, sub, hit that bell, all that, and I'll catch you later.